Review the issue from four approaches. He started with the structure. What were the structural issues and the options? That's it, he said. The people blaming approach. This was the structural frame. We blame individuals when the real problems are the system. He looked at the matrix structure and saw that it was built for conflict. There was no integration between house masters and chair. The goals, the roles, and the responsibilities were very vague, and there was no structural protocol in place for diagnosing conflicts. He asked himself, why did I push them? Why didn't I step in before it all exploded? I guess we'll just live and learn. He thought about what he had done in his previous school and asked himself, what could he do differently? Or what did he do at that time? What worked? He figured he needed to figure out a way to bring people together. And he needed to figure out who to consider for this. He thought about Mr. Carver and Miss Dula and decided to look at it from the human resource perspective. No one feels safe in this school, he said. Until they do, there will never be focus on caring. Everyone seems frustrated because no one is getting their personal and professional needs met. What were the interrelationships in this school? Nothing was discussed openly, and even if it was, the blame was just passed from one person to the other. People didn't ask questions, instead they just harbored suspicions and then went off of that. He needed to make the house a community, a family even. That was the goal. In Module 1 Lurkin that says, organization is a dangerous place where you have to look out for yourself or someone else will do you in. And he thought about that, and he thought about how that applied so much to this school, and had there been an award, the school would have won number one. There was no midpoint between people getting along and people getting even. It was all a tit for tat. He looked at the political issues and the options. There were so many. Although he was not political, he had to shift to a political lens. There were so many issues. The threats, the coercion, they were all part of the power tactics. Department chairs wanted to run faculties. House masters wanted to run their own houses. There was one group that wanted to close doors and bring in guards. The other one didn't. Race issues were simmering under the surface. But the thing was, nobody was really paying attention to what was going on the outside. And he said maybe if people were focused on that common goal of the people outside trying to change things on the inside, maybe that would have pulled them together. He needed to figure out who his allies were, who his opponents were, his supporters, who were those fence sitters. And he needed to make a decision and make one quick. He looked at the symbolic issues and the options. It was pretty clear. The school was too new to have so many roots and so many traditions. There was nothing school-wide for them to bond to. He needed to figure out what symbol would create a common ground. He remembered reading about a speech that Kennedy gave that says, some people see things as they are, and I say why. I dream things that never were, and I say why not. So he needed to create some symbol, some ceremony that would help him weld them together. He needed to understand who Kennedy was. What was the purpose for the school? What was their spirit? He needed to find something that would be something they could celebrate. So he thought to himself again while sipping his coffee, and he had a lot of work to do. Where did he begin, or where would he begin? He had been listening and learning, and now it was time for him to give. He remembered a reading while he was in school that says, don't think, do, be a leader. And that was exactly what he was going to do. He needed to figure out what his gifts were and how he was going to give that out. He thought about Mr. Carver and Miss Dula, the two who were fighting and breaking each other's neck, and he gave them a call. He needed to build deeper connections. He called Chespick and Carver and Smith and commended them. He even spoke to Perkins about an assistant manager position. Remember, Perkins was the housemaster who nobody liked and needed to quit. He gave Mr. Crimson courtesy call to let him know that Mr. Perkins wasn't fired but instead accepted a job. Mr. King had worked the symbolic glue, renewing hopes and dreams and pulling people together for a common purpose. I made it through the valley of confusion, he said. We are now moving roughly in the right direction.